Hardly a day goes by without a major news report about nuclear issues, whether it's the international community's response to Iran's nuclear program or the future of Pakistan's atomic arsenal. At the same time, some politicians and scientists envision a future in which nuclear reactors dot the country, generating electricity that will help break our dependence on fossil fuels. Nuclear energy can help us combat global warming because this power source does not entail the release of carbon into the atmosphere. But the promise of a carbon-free energy source is checked by concerns about the ill effects of nuclear waste, as well as the danger of another disaster, like the 1986 meltdown of a nuclear plant in Chernobyl, Ukraine, the human toll of which we have yet to fully quantify. While we're inundated daily by these news reports, few people understand what the information means. What do 9,000 centrifuges working around the clock at an Iranian nuclear center actually do? What is refined uranium, and how do these machines produce it? And what is the power that resides inside the nucleus of uranium, a humble silvery element found at various locations around the globe? And how does this element deliver the immense destructive power of a nuclear bomb? Most people know about the atom bombs that destroyed Hiroshima and Nagasaki at the end of World War II, and many know that the operation that brought these bombs into existence was called the Manhattan Project. But few people know the full story that led to that massive endeavor: how uranium was discovered, how its properties were investigated, and how a fierce competition among several groups of scientists in different countries brought us a deeper understanding of uranium. Few people know that it is the atom of the element uranium that undergoes the unusual process of fission, by simply splitting in two when it is hit by a tiny subatomic particle. Researchers, working frantically in a race to understand this process, found that splitting apart the uranium atom releases energy, as predicted by Albert Einstein's famous equation, E=mc². Sometime later, an even more intriguing possibility was raised, and soon it too became a reality: the possibility of creating a chain reaction. When a very large number of atoms of uranium undergo fission in a chain reaction, it creates a nuclear explosion. Equally, when the chain reaction is kept under control, when it is more moderate than an explosion, uranium can create the energy generated in a civilian nuclear power plant. We are now at the cusp of developments in world affairs for which our policies concerning energy, economics, and national security depend, in part, on a thorough understanding of the properties and uses of uranium. This is why the story of uranium is so important. Our knowledge about nuclear processes, nuclear bombs, and nuclear energy originated in the Second World War. Scientists who escaped the brutality of the Nazis built the atom bomb in America, just ahead of their counterparts in the Third Reich. Nuclear power went on to have a controversial life, holding the potential to provide civilian populations with energy, yet threatening the world, as rogue states, such as Iran and North Korea, have used it as a subterfuge to defy the international community and continue to develop atomic weapons. The destructive power of nuclear arms is our post-war legacy. Before the war, nuclear processes were a scientific wonder, a mystery that researchers worked night and day to resolve. Uranium Wars charts the lives and work of the scientists who brought us the knowledge to make an atomic bomb, evaluates their responsibility, and explores their triumphs, as well as their failure to stop the bomb from being used against thousands of civilians in Japan, a nation then close to surrender. It is also about the interplay between a country's leadership and its scientific community. All of these are issues I feel most passionately about, questions that have fascinated and tormented me throughout my life. In the 1970s, I was a student of mathematics and physics at the University of California at Berkeley, and I worked in a laboratory with radioactive elements, using the techniques developed by some of the scientists whose stories are told in this book. Through my study of physics, I had the privilege of meeting one of the major players in the drama of modern physics and nuclear discovery, the German scientist and quantum pioneer Werner Heisenberg. This meeting changed and redirected much of my thinking. As a young student, I was taken by Heisenberg's genius and his brilliant explanations of the quantum theory. While Heisenberg never talked about his wartime work on atomic development in Germany, I knew that there was a hidden side to the life of this charming man. And more than 2 decades later, in the 1990s, evidence surfaced that Heisenberg played a significant role in the Nazi effort to build an atomic bomb. I became obsessed with the promise and danger in science, and with the ways governments can manipulate scientists to do their bidding. Many other scientists played crucial roles in the development of atomic power and weapons. Some of them knew exactly what they were doing and entertained no illusions about what governments might do with their work. Others were perhaps more naive, or were willing to believe that they would have a say in the political decisions. The story told in this book is a complicated and fascinating tale about how scientists decoded a mystery of nature, in fierce competition with each other, and how their discoveries enabled the launching of the most enormous weapons research and production project ever undertaken, the Manhattan Project, which brought us the atomic bomb. The book follows the scientific adventures of the men and women who played key roles in the great endeavor of learning the secrets of uranium, breakthroughs that led them to discover the processes of fission and chain reaction, the essential elements of both nuclear power generation and nuclear bombs. These scientists included the tireless and fiercely ambitious Lise Meitner, the Austrian physicist who throughout her life had to struggle against sexism and anti-Semitism and yet triumphed to become the first scientist to decipher the strange process of fission. Our story follows the innovative experiments designed by one of the most versatile scientists of the 20th century, the Italian physicist Enrico Fermi, who thought he had discovered the production of transuranium elements in his lab, when in fact he had made much greater discoveries about radioactivity and the nature of the atom. This would lead to his creation of a chain reaction under the football field of the University of Chicago. And we meet the eminent Danish physicist Niels Bohr, whose work on uranium fission was of paramount importance and who influenced the careers of virtually all the scientists involved in this voyage of discovery. The book describes the struggles, challenges, and triumphs of the scientists who worked on uranium, as well as their conflicts. Their collective work resulted in the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the Cold War, and our present nuclear age, with its great challenges brought on by the proliferation of nuclear weapons and the expansion of nuclear power as a response to global warming.